Now from toddlers to teens, unfortunately, there's a new dangerous drinking game out there. Teens, I guess, challenge their peers over social media to outdo each other with drinks, and the results, well, they can be deadly. And here to tell us how we approach these topics with our kids is Bill Corbett. He's the author of Love, Limits, and Lessons. This new game does not sound good. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, what they do is they're using social media and video, which are the big leading ways of the teens and 20-somethings connect, young adults, as they create a concoction of a drink, and then they challenge someone or several people to outdo that, and they keep upping the ante, and we now know that there's been several deaths as a result of it.
That sounds terrible. So what we're going to do today is we're going to give everybody out there, all the parents, lists of how to better handle their teens when it comes to social media. Your first tip, which is a great tip, but it's being broken all the time, you say no social media whatsoever until age 16.
You know, I'm going to get probably lots of mail. You're going to get lots of mail for that, because a lot of people disagree. They say children are digital natives and they need to be having that stuff. But I say not until 16, because as we know, there's risky behavior in teenagers because they're driven by, let's take a risk, and they don't yet know the impacts of their actions.
Well, you were saying the teen brain, as a general rule, because of that formative time, it's wired to take risks. So games like this on social media don't help at all.
They don't, because there's two regions of the brain that begin to activate. One is the let's take a risk and just check it out. The other part of the brain, that's the executive processing center, that says don't do that, is kind of downplayed, and the power is given to the region that causes them to take risks.
So your second tip is kind of a general home approach. You say you don't want internet-enabled or social media-enabled devices in the bedroom. Where should parents maybe position their home computers and tablets?
Well, it should be in a common area where parents can walk by frequently without notice and look over the shoulder and see what they're doing. And they shouldn't be left in the bedroom with them unattended because of what we just talked about, and because they can actually get themselves a lot of trouble being unattended in there. And it's great to have them sign items out and sign them back in.
And a lot of devices and tablets these days too have restrictions. You can place, you know, specific time for internet, specific time for this website or that website, or for videos or television. So maybe that's something that people can take advantage of too.
They could, but you've got to be a parent that's technical, that's
true.
tech
Yeah, you
savvy,
have to be savvy enough
willing
to
to go in
understand
and
how
check it out.
The next thing, and this is something that you should do anyways, you need to know your kids' friends, but also you need to know the parents of your kids' friends.
Right, because of peer influence. Peer influence is much more powerful than parent influence, so that you can do all the lecturing and counseling and advice your kids all you want, but they're likely to listen more to their peers. That's why you want to know who they hang out with, and how those kids are being raised by meeting their parents.
Well, I think another interesting thing too is when, you know, my parents will give me advice, I'll say, okay, thanks so much. If another set of parents give me that advice, or a friend's parents, sometimes they're the cool parents, or sometimes they're this or that, and you're more inclined to take that advice. So you need to check the other parents out to make sure they're savory characters.
Right, because our kids, your teenagers, develop an allergy to you because you're the parents. You're the one that raised them and gave them life. But they're, like you said, they're more likely to listen to somebody else's parents because you're not connected to them.
Your next tip is that you need more physical friendships, less virtual friendships. How do you cultivate that? And also, how do you convince your kids to get out of the house and go play?
By managing the time that they're allowed on the internet. A lot of kids are beginning to lose reality with face-to-face relationships, and they're relying so much more on the virtual relationships, and we now know that you may not be talking to who you think you are.
That's true. It's funny, I feel like an old man when I say this. You drive down the street, you don't see kids playing anymore in the spring, in the summer. Back, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that's all they'd be doing. Or in the winter, they'd be making snowmen or forts or something. No one does that anymore, so they need to get outside more. Your next tip is just that. It's more real-world activities and involvement as opposed to online groups. Yeah,
and I really encourage get your kids involved in activity, whether it's a church youth group or a sport group or a community town group. They need that embed themselves in an organization and get off the internet.
Because real-world friendships aren't enough. You need to have cultivating relationships in other groups and maybe a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
Right, exactly.
And lastly, how do you make your home teen-friendly so it's a place where kids will want to hang out?
Yeah, the object is to figure out what your kids love to do, know your teens, know teens in general, and how can you kind of restructure your home to have the things that makes your kids' friends want to go, I want to hang out at your house, because that's what you want to do. You want to be able to see who they're hanging out with, be there to supervise them, be there to monitor them, and it's easier than sending your kids to someone else's home.
Got to make your home cool. Then
You
everybody
do.
will want to come to your place.
You do.
Bill, thank you so much for stopping by today. These are
Right.
great tips, especially with this new drinking game coming up. People have to be vigilant. Still ahead.